1 to chapter 6 is all history according to Ezra. So Ezra did not live in the time frame of chapters 1 through 6. And so beginning in chapter 7, Ezra is writing a firsthand report of his experience in going from Babylon to Jerusalem. So understand, who's texting me now? Oh, Daniel. You texted me during the middle of class, Dan. I forgot to say anything. Oh. Anyway. So, in, yeah, I'm here, Dan. So in Ezra chapter 7, we've got Ezra telling the story about how he is leading a delegation, the second wave of Jews from Babylon to Jerusalem. Understand, it had been roughly 100 years since the first migration led by Zerubbabel and Joshua from Babylon to Jerusalem. And in that time, they rebuilt the temple and dedicated it, and then the temple is in activity in that 100-year time frame. So in Ezra chapter 7, Ezra is giving the description of him going back, and the contents of the letter that King Artaxerxes gives him, showing to the people that Ezra has the authority of the king to do whatever he wants. Now that was the crux of last week. So in chapter 8, Ezra is going to recount the journey from Babylon to Jerusalem. So in 7, we essentially have the contents of the letter that Ezra is carrying, and then in chapter 8, he recounts the people that went with him and the happenings on the way from Babylon to Jerusalem. It took about 5 months for this caravan to reach Jerusalem, and we'll see that played out in chapter 8. But chapter 8 and chapter 7 really go together because it's talking about the process and the journey going to Babylon. And understand, once again, as we go through this, especially when we get to the end of chapter 9 or chapter 8, that the temple is in activity. So it had been rebuilt, rededicated, and the temple is being used as it's intended in this time when Ezra shows up in Jerusalem. So with that being said, I don't think this is going to take too long, and we might get into chapter 9 a little bit this week as well. So we'll see how it goes, obviously. And I say that, we'll probably won't get through chapter 8. I don't know what I'm doing. Verse 1 of chapter 8.
Ezra 8. These are now the chief of their fathers, and this is the genealogy of them that went up with me from Babylon in the reign of Artaxerxes the king. Of the sons of Phinehas, Gershom; of the sons of Ithamar, Daniel; of the sons of David, Hattush; of the sons of Shechaniah; of the sons of Pharosh, Zechariah; and with him were reckoned by genealogy of the males 150. Of the sons of Pahath Moab, Eli Hoaniah, the son of Zerahiah, and with him 200 males. Of the sons of Shechaniah, the son of Jahaziel, and with him 300 males. Of the sons also of Adin, Ebed, the son of Jonathan, and with him 50 males. And of the sons of Elam, Jeshahiah, the son of Athaliah, and with him 70 males. And of the sons of Shephatiah, Zebadiah, the son of Michael, and with him 80 males. Of the sons of Joab, Obadiah, the son of Jehiel, and with him 218 males. And of the sons of Shelomith, the son of Josephiah, and with him 180 males. And of the sons of Bebai, Zechariah the son of Bebai, and with him 28 males. And of the sons of Azgad, Johanan the son of Hakatan, and with him 110 males. And of the last sons of Adonikam, whose names are these: Eliphalet, Jael, and Shemaiah, and with them 80 males. Of the sons also of Bigvai, Uthai, and Zabud, and with them 70 males.
So did y'all get those names?
Yep.
All right.
And that's why we use the box.
That's why, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's why we use the box. Now these are families. These are men of families that are going back to Jerusalem. I want you to be reminded that these men, being Jews, had been born and raised and lived in Babylon, in that area, their entire lives. They had never been to Jerusalem. They've never seen the temple. They've never to go to Jerusalem would be that they are packing up and taking all that they have and moving to a completely different area. But again, for a Jew, for someone of Judah, Jerusalem and Canaan was home. That's where God had given them the land. That's where they had been given their promises. That's where they had been given their inheritance all the way back in the book of Joshua, some 800 years prior. And so to go back is to go home, even though their domicile had been in the area of Babylon their entire life. This is the list of the men that went. There was 1,496 men. So assuming women and children, there might have been about 6,000 people in this caravan. Obviously, we don't know for sure, but with nearly 1,500 men, perhaps, if you got a family, there would be 7,000 people. If you need a list of names to give your son, here would be a good list of names to give them. Oh, really? Well, there you go. Yeah. And even looking at them and knowing how to pronounce, there's no way that I could. Anyway, you understand. That's like Tammy said. That's why we have Max McLean read to us. Basically because of that. So these are the families that are going back now to Jerusalem. Okay. Everybody okay so far? All right. Verse 15.
And I gathered them together to the river that runneth to Ahava, and there abode we in tents 3 days. Then I viewed the people and the priests, and found there none of the sons of Levi.
So we get to this, they travel 3 days, they set up camp, and he notices, and this is by the river Ahava. Now, commentators do not know where this river is at, which I thought was kind of odd, but nevertheless, every commentator I read all said that they didn't know where this river was, but obviously it had to be somewhere on the road between Babylon and Jerusalem, but where, perhaps, a 3-day journey, I don't know. Nevertheless, we don't know exactly, so I can't bring up a map and pinpoint on a map where it's at. But I want us to notice something here. He says there in verse 15, I viewed the people and the priests and found there none of the sons of Levi. Now, he looks around. He does see priests. Now, priests in and of themselves were from Levi, but you could be a Levite and not be a priest. Kind of like you can be a dog, but you don't have to be a beagle. Okay? Yeah. Why do I always use beagles when I reference them? I don't know. Did when I was growing up. Maybe my memory's going, but I've had more Yorkies than I've had beagles. Well, no, he was kind of stupid. Nevertheless, you cannot be a beagle if you're not a dog. There we go. So you can be a Levite and not be a priest, but you cannot be a priest without being a Levite. So Ezra looks out amongst all these people and notices, and I don't know how he knows, but he notices that even though there are priests there, there are none from the Levites of themselves. Now, the Levites that weren't priests were servants for the temple work. They had jobs to do in the temple work, but they were not priests. And I'm not going to get down into all that, but just understand that in this group of people, there were no Levites to do that would be commissioned to do the work in the temple that weren't priestly duties. Okay? Now, we got a problem because why isn't this group of men going with us? So, Ezra here in verse 16 has an answer for this, or what he's going to do here. Verse 16.
Then sent I for Eleazar, for Ariel, for Shemaiah, and for Elnathan, and for Jerib, and for Elnathan, and for Nathan, and for Zechariah, and for Meshullam, chief men, also for Jehoiarib, and for Elnathan, men of understanding. And I sent them with commandment unto Edo, the chief of the place Cassifiah. And I told them what they should say unto Edo, and to his brethren the Nethinims, at the place Cassifiah, that they should bring unto us ministers for the house of our God. And by the good hand of our God upon us, they brought us a man of understanding, of the sons of Malai, the son of Levi, the son of Israel, and Sherebiah with his sons and his brethren 18, and Hashabiah, and with him Jeshiah, of the sons of Merari, his brethren and their sons 20, also of the Nethinims, whom David and the princes had appointed for the service of the Levites, 220 Nethinims, all of them were expressed by name.
All right, so there's a lot there. That essentially Ezra gathers up some of his top men that's in this camp and sends them to the city of what is it here, Cassiphia, which apparently that's where the dwelling of many of these Levites were. But he sends his top men back to Cassiphia and rounds up and perhaps gets, in some way musters up these men from Levi to come on and go with us. So you had a 3-day journey from Babylon. You had the camp set up. You notice that there's no people from Levi there. You gather up your top men to go back to Cassiphia, however far that is, which isn't very far, and I'll get to that in a minute. Muster up these Levites that need to go with us. And we see here in verses 18 through 20, there were some of the men of Levi that go and come back with this posse that Ezra had sent back. And now we do have men of Levi in the group camped by this river Ahava, which we talked about a few verses ago. So now we do have men of Levi there. I don't know why. No one knows why they didn't go back. Perhaps they were comfortable in Babylon. Perhaps they didn't want to give up their comfort of home. Perhaps they didn't want to go back and serve in the temple, because that would have been their job to have done temple service. We don't know, but I'm just speculating that perhaps that's why they didn't want to go. Perhaps their hearts were far from the Lord. I don't know that either. But we do see here that these men from verse 17 that Ezra mustered up did go and did their job effectively, and now they are bringing back these men in verses 18, 19, and 20, and they have joined the camp here at Ahava. All right? I told you this was going to go fast. Verse 21.
Then I proclaimed a fast there, at the river of Ahava, that we might afflict ourselves before our God, to seek of him a right way for us, and for our little ones, and for all our substance. For I was ashamed to require the king a band of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy in the way, because we had spoken unto the king, saying, The hand of our God is upon all them for good that seek him, for his power, and his wrath is against all them that forsake him. So we fasted, and besought our God for this, and he was entreated of us.
All right, so once the Levites come to camp, Ezra here in verse 21 proclaims a fast and an offering to God for the provision that God is going to provide along the way. And it says there, to seek the right way for us and for our little ones and for all our substance. Understand that Ezra and this posse, or this caravan, probably is a better term, is not only carrying all of their household goods with them and with their families, but they are bringing back, which we will see here in just a few verses, millions of dollars in gold and silver and stones that have been given by the king and by the people, so that they are ready targets for bandits along this highway. And it says there in verse 22 that he was ashamed to require the king a band of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy. He did not ask for any kind of protection from the king, which I believe he rightly could have done, but he relied fully on the hand and provision of God to get them to Jerusalem safe without loss. Now, I'm not saying that we discount the help of God at all, but we also have to do our own provision to make sure that we are kept safe. It's not hardly any different from putting a seatbelt on in the car, or it's not hardly any different than carrying a weapon of some sort, whether on your person or in your drawer at home, somewhere, for the safety and protection of your family. I am in no way against that, and I encourage that. But that being said, Ezra here, perhaps in some way, I believe, might be a little unsure of himself that perhaps we should have got some of the army to go with us to protect us. However, That being said, here we do see in verse 22, he's fully relying on the Lord to protect and sustain them, which in fact, as we read through the rest of chapter 8, the Lord was kind and the Lord did protect them through the way. But again, this verse is in no way saying that we shouldn't take our own precautions for our own safety or for the safety of our family and loved ones, which some will twist this verse to say, well, you should just fully rely on the Lord. Yes, but the Lord has also given me a brain. So anyway, but we do see here, because there are millions of dollars worth of goods that this caravan has in their possession, an easy target for bandits along the way. What's the difference between a bandit and a marauder? I was wanting to say marauder, but I don't know if that's right. Oh, well, there you go. Well, so does the Lone Ranger. Anyway, Dan's looking. Dan's my man when it comes to looking stuff up. Well, anyway, yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I brought it up. I'm sorry. Oh, oh, oh well. Anyway, verse 23, we fasted and besought the Lord, or our God, for this, and he was entreated for us. They begged for the protection and mercy of God along the way. Okay? Now we've got some other work to do here in verse 24.
Then I separated 12 of the chief of the priests, Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and 10 of their brethren with them, and weighed unto them the silver and the gold and the vessels, even the offering of the house of our God, which the king and his counselors and his lords, and all Israel there present, had offered. I even weighed unto their hand 650 talents of silver, and silver vessels 100 talents, and of gold 100 talents. Also 20 basins of gold, of 1,000 drams, and 2 vessels of fine copper, precious as gold. And I said unto them, Ye are holy unto the Lord, the vessels are holy also, and the silver and the gold are a freewill offering unto the Lord God of your fathers.
So we see here that Ezra has taken these treasures that were given by the king and by the people in general as a free will offering that we spoke of last week. There was no compulsion or threat to give. It was all by free will offering. And we see here, this is the total sum of all the precious metals that has been given to their charge to take back for the work in the temple. Now, if you want to compare, going back to chapter 7, verse 22, that is a list of the materials that the king gave of his storehouse to Ezra. And here we see the sum total of all of it. Now, of the silver, are you sitting down? Yeah, everybody's sitting down. $37,635 worth. That's a lot of silver. Because silver is roughly $40 an ounce. I didn't look. That was last week when I looked. It was about $40 an ounce. So, yeah. Inflation, Shirley, inflation. It was probably $12 back then. Anyway, gold, $476,820. And what's this other one here? I got 5,709. Oh, gold. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of weight too. Anyway, a lot of money, and again, readily available for bandits and marauders and pirates, whatever other kind of bad guy you can think of. But the Lord protected them, as we will see as we go through this rest of this chapter. But He has meted out these vessels and these materials to 12 of his top men to be protecting. So they're not just in one caisson, perhaps. They are in with many of the people that are, 12 of the people that are in this caravan. So he spread them out. Okay? Verse 29.
Watch ye, and keep them, until ye weigh them before the chief of the priests, and the Levites, and chief of the fathers of Israel at Jerusalem, in the chambers of the house of the Lord. So took the priests and the Levites the weight of the silver and the gold and the vessels to bring them to Jerusalem unto the house of our God. Then we departed from the river of Ahava on the 12th day of the first month, to go unto Jerusalem. And the hand of our God was upon us, and he delivered us from the hand of the enemy, and of such as lay in wait by the way. And we came to Jerusalem, and abode there 3 days.
All right, so the trip is easily summed up in 3 verses. Well, they mustered them up in verses 18 through 20. Yeah. And so Ezra tells them that there will be an accounting of all this once we get to the temple. Then it says there in verse 30, the priest took the weight of the silver and the gold and the vessels to bring them to Jerusalem into the house of our God. So the goal of these materials is to dedicate them for the service of the Lord at the temple. It's not to be used for their prosperity along the way or when they get to Jerusalem. This is essentially has been dedicated for the work of the temple. And it says there in verse 31, we departed from the river Ahava on the 12th day of the first month. They left Babylon on the first day of the first month. They camped, and we mustered up some of the Levites. We've separated all these treasures, and now on the 12th day of the first month, we're going to hi-ho silver and head toward Jerusalem. All right? Notice what he says there. The hand of our God was upon us, and he delivered us from the hand of the enemy and of us such as lay in wait by the way. And we came to Jerusalem and abode there 3 days. Now you would think, to me, if I'm taking roughly a 5-month journey with all this stuff and all these people, I'm going to write something down that happened during that time. But maybe Ezra lost his pencil and didn't be able to get it until I got to Jerusalem. I don't know. But we have no record of anything happening in this journey after they leave the river Ahava. No. Yeah. Yeah. Right, yeah. There's a lot of it there. And you've got 6,000 or 7,000 people. You've got all the food that's going to, they didn't have MREs, they've got to have fresh meat every day. And so all of this, just the hand of God being upon this whole caravan for 5 months to get to Jerusalem safely. Now, we could also refer back to the Israelites when they left Egypt and how God protected them, but they did, Moses did write down a lot of stuff that happened to them along the way, but Ezra doesn't write down hardly anything here other than that the Lord took care of them. Now, essentially, at the end of our lives, when we're on our deathbed, what do we have to say other than the Lord was good to me? So, I guess I can see that. Anyway, they get to Jerusalem. Yes. Oh, my. Yeah. Perhaps just renowned men that was in this group. These were his top 12 men here. Yeah, and so it just, well, it could be too. I don't know how to do algebra. You've seen the meme. It's like when they started putting the alphabet in with numbers, they just lost me. Yeah. I do? Oh. I do what? Yeah. Well, probably the way they do it is probably 59 cents because you got to buy 3 to get a cheaper deal. But I know what you're saying. Yeah. You buy 1 for 59 or 3 for 99. So if I'm buying 1, I am probably paying 59. How do we get off on all this? I don't know.
Understanding.
Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so they get to Jerusalem and they are there 3 days before they go to the temple. Now, perhaps this was to get their lives set up. But either way, after 3 days, we're going to go to the temple, all right, which is where we are here on verse 33.
Now on the 4th day was the silver and the gold and the vessels weighed in the house of our God by the hand of Meremoth, the son of Uriah the priest. And with him was Eleazar the son of Phinehas, and with them was Josaphat the son of Jeshua, and Noadiah the son of Binnui, Levites, by number and by weight of every one, and all the weight was written at that time. Also the children of those that had been carried away, which were come out of the captivity, offered burnt offerings unto the God of Israel. 12 bullocks for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 lambs, 12 he-goats for a sin offering. All this was a burnt offering unto the Lord. And they delivered the king's commissions unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors on this side the river. And they fed the people in the house of God.
So they go to the temple on the fourth day, verse 33, and they give an accounting of all of these precious metals that they have been carried from the king and from the people back in Babylon. A full accounting has been given, and it looks, and at the verse 33, the main men of the temple here are the ones conducting this audit. I don't think that the men of the temple had any idea how much stuff this caravan was bringing, but I believe that Ezra felt like should be an accounting because a lot of this was given by the king, and so let's give an accounting so we can send messages back to the king that all this stuff has gotten here safe and sound and in proper place. It's not only to show the integrity of the people and the safety of the travels, but also, I believe, to show the integrity of Ezra, which he is a man who the king has given full authority over. For Ezra to be full authority over all these people in Judea. All right? And it says there in verse 35 that all these people came together to the temple and they offered burnt offerings to the God of Israel, and it gives there the number of the animals that were sacrificed there at the temple in celebration of the gift that had been given to the temple, and also for the provision of the Lord in getting these people here safely. Now, it's my opinion that no one that was living in Judea at this time knew anything or knew these people that had come. It wasn't like a family type reunion, but I do believe that they knew there was a delegation coming and that they celebrated because the other new delegation of Jews has come from captivity, even though technically they've not been in captivity for over 100 years. You understand, though, that they are still referred to as the children of the captivity, as we see here in verse 35. And there in verse 36, they delivered the king's commission to the king's lieutenants and the governors. So Ezra made proclamation that I have this commission from the king, and this is my duty. And so Ezra gave his commission to the people, and there we are. Comments or questions on chapter 8? Do what?
In verse 10, you mean?
Oh. Verse 10, I don't see Benai. 11? Yeah, that's in verse 11. The sons of Benai, Zechariah, the son of Bebai, and with him 20 and 8 males. Yeah, there is no Benai in verse 10.
Apparently, you're not King James.
Yeah, Yeah, in verse 10, I have Shemosmith and Jehoshaphat, however you say it. Okay, yeah, I don't know. I've got 160 in mine in verse 10. In verse 10, I've got 160, 103 score. That's 160. Oh. But I don't have that name listed. All right.
Because you're in King James.
Yeah. So, we're going to go ahead and go to chapter 9. Now, chapter 9 and 10, things aren't we take a big turn in chapter 9 and 10. And chapter 9 and 10 happens very, very soon after the celebration of chapter 8. This is not like years have passed, okay? There's just been, I think here, does it say? I thought it said, but apparently not. The events of 9 and 10 happened very soon after the events of chapter 8, with a big celebration there in chapter 8. Now we get to chapter 9. Now, again, I don't know how far we'll get, but if I can get through the first 4 or 5 verses, then I think we can finish all this next week. So let's see what happens here. Again, the mood changes drastically here, which we will see in Ezra's reaction here. Chapter 9.
Ezra 9. Now when these things were done, the princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites had not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations, even of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites.
So Ezra gets word that the people of Israel, the priests and the Levites, have not separated themselves from the people of the land. Understand that Joshua was given a command way back when he was in charge to kill everyone in the land, and he didn't do it. So in amongst Canaan land, there were people of other tribes and other peoples in their land. Fast forward some 800 years, and now Israel is taken captive into Babylon. The land is desolate for 70 years. There's very, very, very few people of Judah in the land of Canaan. So these other peoples, these pagans, take over the land. Fast forwarding in 70 years, and the first wave of people leave Babylon and go back to Jerusalem, and the land has been overtaken by pagans. In this ensuing 100 or so years, the people of the Jews begin to intermarry with these pagan people that's in Canaan land. That was strictly forbidden, because these people are pagans. They don't worship the God of Israel. They don't acknowledge the God of Israel. They have idols of their own making. Do not have anything to do with these people because they are pagans. But what's it say there? They've not separated themselves from the people. We're going to find out. Well, let's read verse 2.
For they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers hath been chief in this trespass.
So, the people have married the pagan daughters. Their sons have married pagans. The holy seed, in other words, the Jews, have been intermingled now, or have been intermingled with these pagan people. Now, we've been given a commandment in the New Testament that a Christian should not marry a non-Christian. And it goes back to the same principle. But these people have married these pagans, and it's caused a lot of problems. And notice in verse 2 also that the princes and the rulers have been chief in this process, or in this trespass. They've been the instigators of all of this. The people that God has entrusted to be overseers of the people have gotten themselves involved more than any of the others. This is a big deal. We're going to see Ezra's reaction here in just a moment. But Ezra gets word that these people are intermingled with the pagans in marriage. And now these pagans have infiltrated every aspect of Jewish life because the families are now intermingled. Verse 3.
And when I heard this thing, I rent my garment and my mantle, and plucked off the hair of my head and of my beard, and sat down astonished.
So, we don't really do this now, But can you imagine ripping your shirt and tearing your coat and pulling the hair out of your head? We may act like it, but has anybody ever done that? Pat, could you just pull your beard out because you're so mad? Raymond, can you do that? Just grab your beard and just... Yeah. Yeah. But this was the reaction of Ezra. when he finds out this is what's happened. He's ripped his garments and his mantle. He's pulled his hair out of his head. And now, perhaps in those days, your hair wasn't attached as strong as it is today with all of our stuff. I don't know. I just can't imagine. I don't know. Well, that might be. Yeah. Anyway. Well, yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I know why I live when I live, because I got to have a bath every day. Anyway, he sets down a stone. He just can't believe the news that he's been given. My assumption is that Ezra assumes that when he gets back to Jerusalem, everyone's living a separated life. But apparently, have you not learned anything from the 70-year captivity of our forefathers? I believe that's what Ezra's thinking here. You have not learned anything. And they're even worshiping these false idols that the pagans are worshiping. Verse 4, and then we're going to be finished with some closing thoughts.
Then were assembled unto me every one that trembled at the words of the God of Israel, because of the transgression of those that had been carried away. And I sat astonished until the evening sacrifice.
So he is, I don't know what time of day he got this word, but this evening sacrifice was roughly 3 in the afternoon. So he is just in complete disbelief of what he's been told until 3 in the afternoon. All right? That's where I'm going to stop, because if I can't stop after we pick up at verse 5.